Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome to this episode. Before we get started, if you would please put your hand over your heart for the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner. Thank you so much, folks. And now, if you would, keep your hand over your heart for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now let's get this party started, folks. That's right. Let's go, Brandon.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real, just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Wilderness. This is the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live from a secret cave hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup. We're tearing through the atmosphere. And we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, January the 13th, 2022. That's right. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad that you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do some time traveling tonight. That's right, we're going to fire up the old time machine and go back to the first full episode we ever did here on the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show. Ladies and gentlemen, can you guess what that episode was called? That's right, time travel. We're going to time travel back to the time travel episode and review the information there, information that we haven't really talked about since that episode, amazingly enough. So get ready, folks. We're going to fire it up here in just a moment. But first, we're going to go ahead and get these two fun little segments out of the way, as we have a whole lot to cover tonight and very little time to get there. The first segment, which we call Today in History. On this day in 2021, we here at the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show covered the topic of out-of-body experiences. That's right. I figured we will go ahead and fire the time machine up tonight, so we might as well look back a year ago tonight and see exactly what we were doing. And we were doing OBEs. What a great topic, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, that was 1 year ago today on the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show, and that is today's segment of Today in History. Say what? Our quote of the day today, ladies and gentlemen, is something that a friend of mine that I grew up with, he was like a brother to me, is like a brother to me. His name is Josh. You know who you are, bud. Used to say this all the time. I couldn't find who the quote is originally attributed to, so I'm going to go with either unknown or my buddy Josh here. The quote is this, and I quote, "Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars," end quote. That's right. And what a great, great philosophy to live by, right? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is today's segment of Say What? Again, amazing words to live by, but let's jump in the time machine, ladies and gentlemen, fire it up, and head back to the first episode we ever did here on the DarkWolf's Den Show, which was about time travel and how to build that time machine. That's right. So give me a minute. Let's fire this thing up, and we'll get right into it. Didn't start that time. Hold on. Let's try it again. I don't understand what's wrong. Maybe if I hit this switch right here and... Here we go. Hold on tight, folks. Almost there. Get ready. I hope everybody made it safely. Looks like we're all in one piece. I know I kind of broke a bit of a time travel rule, as we have traveled back to May 21st, 2020. That's a year that I vowed I would never jump back to, but yet here we are, ladies and gentlemen, for the first ever full episode of the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show. It started out a little rough. I hadn't really, as you guys know, had that kind of radio experience. So once I went to do this show, I made a lot of rookie mistakes, the first of which ended up being a bit of a garbled double audio. Check this out.
This is coming to you from a secret mountain cave hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness. This is the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
It is me, Jerry Hicks, known as Dark Wolf, and welcome back. Hey, Rippin' Rabbits. It is me, Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. Wow, being back here, even though it was merely 2 years ago, not even 2 years ago yet, it's such an amazing revelation on how much things have grown here and changed. It's almost unrecognizable from today's show, right? I do still every now and then have those audio issues, but nowhere as bad as this. But eventually we did get it cleaned up as we got into the real important part of this episode. Well, what if I told you there very well may be evidence of real-world time travel? That's right. In his 2002 book, Le Nouveau Mystère de Vatican, or The Vatican's New Mystery, Father Francis Brune states that an Italian priest and scientist named Pellegrino Ernetti, along with 12 other of the most respected scientists of the time, invented a device called the chronovisor. And this still happens to be one of my favorite case files of all time when it comes to time travel. And case file that if you have not heard it before, I would definitely check out the Chronovisor by Father Ernetti. And this is a really, really neat device, guys. So I want you to picture in your head real quick a great big metal cabinet, say a gunmetal gray cabinet. And in the middle of this cabinet is a TV screen. And in the middle of the TV screen, you've got all kind of images playing, and on the side, you've got buttons and levers and knobs and all kind of fun little things to turn and play with. And the way this machine works is you tune in to a specific time and area, and the machine is supposed to collect the electromagnetic and sound energy waves from that area and redisplay them on a TV screen right in front of you. And, you know, that might sound far-fetched, but if you think about the stone tape theory and the idea that these traumatic and emotional events get locked into the fabric of time, that's really not all that far-fetched after all, is it? Now, they claim to have used this device to witness such things as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, speeches given by the Roman politician Cicero, the Great Fire of Rome, and even the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. They were even said to have displayed and recorded the crucifixion of Christ. However, on his deathbed, Father Ernetti did admit to the Christ picture being faked. But that's where the story gets a little bit weird. You see, he was adamant to the point up to his death that the chronovisor really did exist. Even after admitting that the Jesus Christ picture was fake, he also was adamant that the chronovisor is a real thing. What an incredible case file for sure. And unfortunately, the chronovisor, as we know, has been locked away into the Vatican archives. And we continued on our discussion as we brought up yet another interesting time travel case. I believe all this information is so relevant even today. It may even be more relevant today than when we did this episode, right? How many of you have ever heard of OOP arts, also known as out-of-place artifacts? Still one of my favorite studies, these out-of-place artifacts, is none of them have really been debunked yet, right? I can't believe how different I sound back then. It's really kind of weird to hear myself on this show way back when. I mean, nobody usually likes hearing their voice. As a radio host, we get used to hearing our voice, but this just sounds like it was so long ago, feels like it was so long ago, even though we've only jumped back about 2 years. But let's see what kind of oop arts we brought up in this episode. Take, for instance, what happened in 2008, when a team of archaeologists were in China uncovering a tomb, and while they were taking the dirt and soil off around a coffin, a piece of rock dropped off of it and hit the floor. But it made a metallic sound. And it really caught the archaeologist off guard. So they picked up the clump of dirt and knocked all the soil out of it, and a ring appeared. But here's the oddity. On the back of the ring, which ended up being a watch ring at that, had the word Switzerland printed in English. A Swiss watch ring was found in a 400-year-old Chinese tomb. Those of you who were around back then, you guys remember this case file? Or even those that are new to the show and haven't been here since the very first episode, have you heard of this case file? A really, really strange oop-art here because it's hard to debunk it considering it was found within the clay and dirt structure that was surrounding this tomb. Now, I ask you, how could that have come to be in there when it wasn't made but maybe a century prior? Yet it was 3 centuries behind that. That's an example of an out-of-place artifact. Wow, I really did not explain that well that time, did I? Let's try that again. This ring was found 3 centuries before it should have even been created to begin with. Like I said, I was very new to the radio thing at this point. This being the first ever full episode. Definitely a trip to travel back in the time machine to this. Are you guys enjoying this? I sure hope so. That time machine definitely overworked carrying all you guys back here. It might be a minute before we can kick it back on and get back home, guys. Or take the well dug near the Ohio River in North Cincinnati in 1826. It went down to a level of 94 feet when they found a buried tree stump. In the tree stump were clear marks that an axe had been swung into it. A little while later, they found the axe. It was a piece of iron that was shaped like a wedge. Okay, Jerry, I get that, but what makes this such a strange case file? That sounds pretty normal to me. A wedge was found, an axe was found where axe marks were found. Why is that strange? The layer in which the stump and axe and all were found dated between 50,000 and 75,000 years old. This is nearly 10 times the accepted age by science, of course, material science, of the first metal usage. That's a long time before we supposedly were be able to work metal, and this axe head was clearly there as evidence that someone or something had advanced technology at that time. Okay, Jerry, I'll give you that one. That is definitely quite strange indeed. Perhaps a time traveler went back and dropped the axe before he was leaving the area, I guess, or out of time and had to go for a lack of better term, but definitely an object that shouldn't have been found when and where it was found, right, Jerry? Or take, for instance, Göbekli Tepe. Now, for those of you who do not know, Göbekli Tepe is definitely an enigma unto itself. I know that might seem a little out of place to you guys, but hear me out. If we're to believe modern science, unfortunately in 2022, modern science does not have the best reputation, does it? Especially modern scientism, which, as you know, even from this first show here, you can tell we railed on from day one. Then Göbekli Tepe was built by the same people that they claim were berry-eating, spear-throwing hunter-gatherers who were barely smart enough to smack 2 rocks together. Yet they were able to build a structure like Göbekli Tepe over 1,000 years before the tools that were needed to build such a structure as Göbekli Tepe even existed. Exactly. How in the world do you build something a long time before you have the tools available needed to build that thing. That is what we would normally call impossible, but then again, we still call the pyramids impossible today, right? We cannot replicate those. But Göbekli Tepe, definitely a conundrum, considering they should not have been able to build that within the time frame that were given by science that they did build that. Now remember, these scientists have more of a narrative than an evidence-based conclusion most of the time. So those were some pretty smart rock smackers to be able to build such an amazing structure. And then turn around and fill the entire thing in with dirt. That, if you ask me, is pretty darn incredible. And begs to question, if you're going to take all the time and resources to build something as extravagant as, say, Göbekli Tepe, with the tools that you weren't supposed to have to begin with, why are you going to fill it all in with dirt and leave it as if nothing happened? That all still to this day seems so incredibly strange to me. However, OOP-arts aren't the only thing we covered on this episode. Oh no, then we would jump over into another topic which we haven't really covered as much on this channel maybe as we should, and perhaps we'll have a chance to get back to it sometime when we get back to our own time, hopefully, of course, if we can get this time machine working. We don't want to get stuck in 2020, you guys. I don't remember if you remember how bad it was, but look around. This is not a good time to get stuck. There's a lot of crazy going on right now. But that aside, folks, we definitely had more to talk about than OOP-arts on this episode. Check this topic out. Well, what about it being put there by time-traveling celebrities? That's right. I said time-traveling celebrities. So hear me out once again. Say you're a celebrity. You have all the money you could ever think of. You've got the house, you've got the car, you've got the dream, right? And you decide to go on vacation. However, where do you want to go? You've been to Disney World 90 times, Hawaii 90 times. You've been all over the world. You've got all the money in the world. Everything gets old after a while, right? When you can do everything, you don't really want to do anything, right? Because you've done it all. But then your elite buddy comes up to you and says, hey, man, we have a time machine. You want to go on a real vacation? Come with me. Let's go take a vacation in time. Even in 2022, I still don't think that concept is very far-fetched at all. Celebrities like John Travolta, who has a very distinct match in history. Or Jack Black, who looks like the identical reincarnation of Paul Revere. And yes, the argument could be made of reincarnation, fair enough. How about Eddie Murphy? He has a twin back in history. But my favorite, my absolute favorite, is Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin has got a picture, at least a guy that looks identical to Vladimir Putin, from 1940. But that's not all. There's yet another one from 1920. So is he an immortal? Maybe a time traveler? Why do these time travelers keep showing up in photos? Willard Fillmore, right? He looks just like Alec Baldwin. That's interesting, huh? If Alec Baldwin is an immortal, he'll be spending the rest of his immortal life in prison if things go the wrong way for him in court, right? So do they really have access to time travel like we have access to going to the beach? Do they really take vacations like that? Perhaps. But when would you go? Think about that for a minute. If your buddy come up and said, hey man, I've got a time machine and we can go to any time you want, past or future, where would you go, right? Or when would you go? I guess would be the best question, huh? I've thought about that a lot. And to this day, I still think about where I would go in time, but when would you go in time? Go ahead, put your answers in the chat room over there in the Darkwolf's Den Show or the Rippin' Rabbit Hole, and let me know when in time would you go. And my answer, it changes variably because I've come up with all kind of good answers. At first, I would have said ancient Egypt, right? To see the pyramids being built and know how they did it, know whether they used levitation or if they used canals or if it was even humans at all that built them, right? Could have been the Anunnaki. Maybe it's even something different than that. Or how about the Sphinx? That's even older, right?
Who built the Sphinx? Wouldn't you love to see that thing being put up?
Maybe we'll have to all fire up the time machine sometime and see if we can't get it to take us back to ancient Egypt, right? By the way, if you're interested in how we built this time machine, we also went over the blueprint of the time machine. That's coming up, folks, in the second half, so stick around if you're interested in that. But in the meantime, let's get back to other areas that we might travel in time, right?
What about ancient Samaria, when the gods were said to walk among man, right? How neat would that be? Or maybe when dinosaurs walked the earth? Would you like to go back and ride atop a stegosaurus, huh? Maybe climb up a brontosaurus neck and go for a stroll one day?
And if my prediction of the beginning of 2022 comes true, then we very well may be riding around on dinosaurs as our own pets, right? How cool would that be?
Maybe you'd like to go back like Father Ernetti claimed he did and see the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Or even better, maybe the missing years of Jesus Christ, right? From 12 to 29? Maybe you'd like to go back there and see what really happened when Jesus was a kid. Wouldn't that be neat? I know I would.
And to this day, I still would. I just can't get the time machine to square in on the right location just yet.
How about ancient Greece? Go hang out with the old philosophers. Discuss philosophy with the originals, right? Oh, that would be so fun. Or the future. This is where I would like to go. And I was talking to my friend Heather the other day, and we were discussing different times, and she agreed she would like to go also to the future and see just how humanity fares, right? See if we get off this planet. See if we make it to another civilization, another world. See how technology goes. See what kind of amazing breakthroughs we get, right? That would be amazing.
And I stand by that answer, folks. I still would love to time travel even further into the future than we've already made it in 2022 and see even how much more mankind is able to produce if things get cleaned up from what we've got going on now anyway, right?
Or how about the very, very beginning of time? Back to the primordial soup, before humans even existed. Back to the moment DNA came together. Or your own birth. Somebody actually, when I asked them this question, said, well, I'd like to go see my own birth. I never would have thought about that. Your own birth. That would be pretty neat, wouldn't it?
Pretty neat and a little bit weird, right? I'm not sure exactly how I feel about going back to watch my own birth. What about you guys?
How about 1975? In the year 2000, the internet was in its early days, and it's very much in its infancy. And one of the main places to hang out were called bulletin boards. Well, on one called the Time Travel Institute, a person showed up on November 2nd named Time Travel _0. He posted there for a little while about the concepts of time travel, the ideas of how to build a time machine, different interesting things about time travel in general.
Does anybody know the name of the time traveler I'm referencing here before we actually get into who this was? Go ahead and put in the chat if you know who the time traveler is that I'm talking about here.
He later would go on to get on the Art Bell forum, and because Art Bell set his forum up where you needed more of a regular style name, he went with the name John Teeter.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you said John Teeter, go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back and 1 point. You are absolutely correct. And John Teeter is a character that to this day is very intriguing to me.
John Teeter claimed to be an American soldier sent back in time from the year 2036 in a secret government time travel project. According to John, he was sent back to get an IBM 5100 computer from the year 1975. He said he needed this to debug various programs in 2036. Now, when I first heard this, like most of you right now probably are doing, I kind of laughed and said, why would you need old technology for new technology issues? However, there is something called the Unix year 2038 problem. So that may very well be what it is in reference to.
And we will discuss more of John Teeter and everything he talked about in the second half, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to review the time travel episode that we've traveled back to take a look at, folks. But we got to go ahead and take a network break right here and talk about the future on the ripinrabbithole.com. So sit right there, stick around, don't touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks and time travel on a Thursday night. Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's reversal look at time travel? I know I am. If you are and you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video. Hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, bringing you the very best of common sense radio, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. I'll return again tomorrow night, Friday, January 14th, a look at the high horse. Come along with me as we explore the rabbit hole of the people that need to come down off of their high horse. Then Saturday night, January 15th, we'll explore the rabbit hole of antisocials. An interesting look at just how being antisocial affects society in 2022. Then Sunday night, we'll end out the weekend right together, January 16th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as all shows do. We'll dive down the fascinating rabbit hole and explore subliminal messages. An audience-suggested topic we'll cover to end out the weekend right with you Sunday night. What an interesting lineup of content ahead, from the high horse to antisocial and subliminal messages. It is going to be a wild weekend. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to hop on over to our website, ripinrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. There you can sign up for your exclusive backstage VIP pass. It's going to give you unfiltered access down the rabbit hole to where the conversation continues. Also, our community-generated press lets you know things that you might not be able to find elsewhere, as well as our on-demand rebroadcast library of all the shows we've done over the many years that we've been doing them. So we invite you over there, get signed up, dial in your profile, and start introducing yourself to our community-generated press. Featured news, top of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole tonight, Supreme Court blocks Biden COVID vaccine mandate for businesses. Big news. Apparently, it's not the only thing Biden was blocked on today, as also what he tried to push through regarding voting rights failed by 3 votes. So Biden's not having a real good day today. He might be spending the rest of the upcoming weeks in his basement. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll return back to Jerry Hicks and the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show for Time Travel Revisited. You're listening to the Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the DarkWolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And welcome back to the second half of the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show for Thursday, January the 13th, 2022. That's right. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have traveled back in the time machine to May 14th, 2020, a year I swore I would never go back to yet. Once again, here we are discussing John Titor. When we went to the break, we were talking about the Unix 238 problem and John Titor being on the chat boards
of Art Bell. And John actually had a lot going on back then, as we continued to cover in this episode. The IBM 5100 had some very interesting unpublished features that Mr. Teeter happened to know about. The strange thing here is only about 6 people in the entire world actually knew about these features. He claimed that he had stopped off in the year 2000 to pick up some personal items that he had lost during the war, or the Civil War, I should say, that occurred in America around 2003 or 2004. However, we know in our timeline that did not happen. What makes this incredibly disturbing is we now see a scenario where that very same Civil War could occur on our timeline, right? Albeit a little more delayed than it was on Mr. Teeter's, it still is looking more and more every day like a good possibility. But moving on, he also went on to post what would be considered the recipe for how to build a time machine. Now, he did not give us how to put it together. However, he did give us the list of ingredients that we would need. So tonight, we're going to tell you how to build your very own time machine. That's right, folks. You heard that right. We are going to do it again. In case you missed it all those years ago, we are going again to go over what is needed to build a time machine per John Teeter. That's right. So first on the list, we have 2 magnetic housing units for the dual micro singularities. So don't worry, I will put that into layman's speak. That is saying you need 2 boxes with a very strong magnetic pull or very strong magnetism on them to hold a black hole in each one. A very small miniature, or what he calls micro black hole. That's what a micro singularity would be, the singularity at the center of a black hole. And let me tell you, that was not an easy thing to find. We actually had to create our own magnetic boxes, but creating the black hole, now that was the tricky part. So far we've got 2 boxes that are very highly magnetic, and they are holding a miniature black hole in place in the middle of each box. I can picture this so far. Next, you need an electron injection manifold to alter mass and gravity of the micro singularities. So I'm assuming he means something like an electron gun, but I'm not entirely sure. So what we basically end up with is a mass accelerator running into 2 black holes that were able to vary the amount of energy that goes into the black holes by the amount of electrons running through the collider at any given time. A miniature particle collider that is held in place by these magnets. It's really a tricky device to put together. Next, you would need a cooling and X-ray venting system. Of course, black holes do give off a lot of energy and X-rays. So you would need something to vent these extra energies out of the environment. We went with a padded shielding with a lead base that has an air system in it, ventilating both the air and the radiation in and out of the time machine. Definitely makes for better breathing, especially when you have a HEPA filter on there, right? Don't want to catch any time viruses. Next, you would need a gravity sensor or a variable gravity lock. I don't know what a variable gravity lock would even be, so yeah, that one's just as good on you as it is me. This list was clearly not made for me to follow. And yet, somehow it seems that we were able to, as the gravity locking device, once again, not an easy thing to accomplish, but through magnetics, that is surprisingly able to be done. It also helps to have the particle accelerator turned up to a very, very high speed at the time, increasing the mass on which you are sitting. Next, we need 4 main cesium clocks. 4 cesium I don't know why it has to be cesium, but that's what it says. And last but not least, you need 3 main computer units to run everything. We were able to narrow it down to a PC and a smartphone, so lucky for us, this thing works as well as it does, right? And that, ladies and gentlemen, according to John Teeter, is how you build a time machine. But is John Titor the only one to have ever claimed to travel through time? Well, it turns out he's not. There's a phenomenon known as time slips, and one of the most famous cases of a time slip occurred in 1935. Now, time slips is yet another particularly interesting topic that I really am intrigued by. Definitely one that we need to do an episode or two on again for sure, right, guys? It was a guy named Sir Victor Goddard. Take a listen to this.
One such case happened in 1935 when an air marshal, Sir Victor Goddard, was flying from England to Scotland. And while he was flying, he wanted to fly over an airfield that he used to know, but is now abandoned. And since this was close to his destination, he wanted to go check it out. So I'm guessing that he must have had some fond memories there. And while he was flying over it, he saw that the old hangars were falling apart.
For those wondering, and I'm not sure if I did say it in that episode, this is Paranormal Junkie that we're listening to right now.
The foliage was overgrown, and the airport was now a farm filled with cattle. Now, after his little side mission, he decided it was time to fly to his destination in Scotland. Then after a couple of days in Scotland, it was time for him to fly back home to England. And during his flight, he saw a storm approaching. There was no way to escape the storm, so he had to fly through it. And while he was flying, his equipment just started to go haywire. He had a very hard time flying the plane. He didn't think he was going to make it.
What really makes this an intriguing case file for sure is the next part that this man experiences.
Then he saw that he was now surrounded by strange-looking yellow clouds. He also felt that he was falling for a very long time, but he never crashed. Then finally, these bizarre yellow clouds disappeared, and when he looked down, he saw the abandoned airfield. But this time, this airfield wasn't abandoned. The old hangars appeared to be brand new. He also saw 4 planes, and also the mechanics, which he recognized, but which was strange. There was another plane that was painted yellow that he'd never seen before. Were dressed in brown overalls. And also the mechanics were dressed in blue overalls, which was strange. What the heck was going on? The mechanics in the yellow clouds were dressed in brown overalls. Again, he was surrounded by the storm. Victor was flying, wondering what the heck was going on. It wasn't as bad as the first time returned, and yet again, he was surrounded by the storm. Now, we did tell people what had happened to him. It wasn't as bad as the first time, and he was able to break free and get back home. No one took him seriously. Now, we did tell people what had happened to him.
Wow, folks, I do apologize. That is not on my end. See, back then, like I said in the first half, I was brand new to the radio game, so there were a lot of rookie mistakes in this episode, and this happens to be one of them. So bear with us as we get through this section, please.
And what he saw when he returned. But what really freaked him out no one took him is that in 1939, 4 years later, anymore. Mechanics began to wear blue overalls. But what really freaked him out is that in 1939, 4 years later, mechanics began to wear blue overalls. Then the RAF, the Royal Air Force, started to make new yellow monoplanes, exactly like the one he saw. He also heard that the abandoned airfield was now being rebuilt. Now, Victor, after seeing what he saw come true, believed that somehow he must have looked into the future.
So this guy flies through an electronic fog of some type, ends up coming out in what appears to be the future, which is verified in the future when the airfield that he saw suddenly turned back into a active airfield with the correct plane colors, as well as the mechanics wearing the color of overalls that he had seen them wear way back when. So definitely a really strange case file of a time slip, right?
There was just no other explanation. He also believed that the bizarre storm that surrounded him with those strange-looking yellow clouds must have had something to do with it. But he never talked about it again until 1966 when he wrote about it. Then in 1975, he wrote a book called A Flight into Reality. Now, because Victor at this time was a very well-respected member of the Royal Air Force, as well as being a senior commander, people now did believe him. He was even knighted by the Queen. So it must have took a lot of courage to write about his experience, because his good name was on the line, making this a very interesting case, and at least in my opinion, a very credible eyewitness.
A credible eyewitness indeed. Pilots have very specialized training and spend a lot of time in the sky, so when a pilot reports anything out of the ordinary, my ears perk up, and I love to listen. And that's an example of accidental time travel that we just heard, but is there any examples of time travel accidental besides that? Well,
spoiler alert, the answer is yes. Yes, there is evidence for more than one person accidentally time traveling.
Our friend Bit of Venom in the last show in the chat mentioned the man from Torred, and this is an amazing story, so I felt I had to bring it up tonight because it does suggest time travel or time slips or interdimensional travel, or who knows, that could be one and the same, right? Time travel and interdimensional travel.
Some scientists now suggest that very well may be the case is if you time travel to a different, quote, reality, it would disallow any and all time travel paradoxes. That's right.
About the man from Torred. In about 1954, a man arrives in Japan and gets off the plane and goes into customs. Upon going into customs, he gives his passport to them, and they don't recognize the name of the country on the passport. So they pulled the guy into interrogation and asked him where he's from, and he continued to demand he's from a country that they did not know existed. So upon asking him to point out his country on a map that he swore was between France and Spain, he pointed to the small country of Andorra and was quite distraught to find that his country, named Taured, Taured, was nowhere to be found on the map at all. He had been well traveled and all of the stamps looked completely legit, and he'd even been to Japan more than once, according to his logbook. Also, the company he was supposed to be visiting there had never heard of him before. So, because this alarmed the Japanese officials, they decided to go ahead and lock him in a hotel room a couple stories high and put some guards on his door. And they went ahead and put his personal belongings in a safe and left him be for the night. The next morning, they come back to check on the man from Torred, whose name was never given. And when they opened the door, the man had completely vanished, along with every bit of his property in the safe. So was he accidentally from another time who had slipped through to the 50s for whatever reason? Or even better, was he from another dimension, another time altogether, another time loop, timeline altogether?
Or who knows what. The man from Torred, definitely a very intriguing story. Look that up also if you guys have not heard that. It's argued that that may have been from a short story. I'm not 100% sure, but of course, in the end, ladies and gentlemen, you be the judge, right? But we aren't quite there yet. There's one more part of this episode. In the second half, we were headed out to break at that point. We came back and we discussed probably one of my favorite sound bites to ever be in a show from Dr. Michio Kaku. Check this out.
Let's start with Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton believed that time was like an arrow. Once you fired it, it went in a straight direction. 1 second on the Earth was 1 second on Mars, was 1 second on Jupiter. It never reversed directions. Along comes Einstein, who says, not so fast, not so fast. Time is like a river, old man river, that meanders around stars, speeds up and slows down. The new wrinkle in all this, which is causing all the excitement and the dismay of philosophers, is that this river of time can fork into two rivers. Or perhaps the river of time can have whirlpools and time can go in on itself. In that case, time travel is something you have to take very seriously because Einstein's equations do allow for time travel. And they're blueprints, blueprints for different kinds of time travel designs that are compatible with Einstein's theory.
Yes, you heard that right, folks. Einstein's theory not only suggests that time travel is possible, but basically lays out the blueprint for it.
For example, gigantic spinning cylinders. You go around the cylinder and you come back before you left. Colliding cosmic strings. You wind around these cosmic strings and you come back before you left.
But there's a problem. There are the paradoxes of time travel that we mentioned a moment ago, right? Like the grandfather paradox, for instance.
Or meeting your teenage mother when she's a teenager and she falls in love with you. So how can you be born if your teenage mother just fell in love with you?
That would definitely be a very bad thing. But check this out.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you by Dr. Michio Kaku, the mother of all time travel stories. Dr. Kaku, take it away.
Let me give you the mother of all time travel stories and see whether you can figure this out. Let's see whether you're smart enough to figure this one out. The year is 1945. A stranger comes in from the darkness carrying a baby girl that he leaves at an orphanage. Well, the nuns find this baby girl. They don't know where the baby girl came from, so the nuns call her Jane. And Jane grows up as an orphan, wondering, who is my mother? Who is my father? Well, when Jane is 17 years old, she's a beautiful young woman, and then she has her first boyfriend. A drifter comes drifting into her life, but it was not meant to be. They quarrel. She argues with her boyfriend, and it's a very sad story. First, she finds out that she's pregnant. Her boyfriend has left her. She's abandoned and pregnant. She's rushed to the hospital 9 months later. She delivers a beautiful baby girl, but somebody that night breaks open the window of the hospital, kidnaps Jane's baby girl, and leaves in the darkness. Well, it's even worse than this. Jane is bleeding very rapidly. She's going to die. The doctors have to perform an emergency experimental operation. They have to change Jane into Jim. Well, Jim wakes up the next day with this huge headache, and he's told the bad news. First, the boyfriend left her pregnant, somebody stole her baby, and now she's not even Jane anymore. She's Jim. Well, Jim grows up and becomes a barroom drunk. Every time someone says, who are you, Jim? Where did you come from? Who was your mother, your father? Well, finally, Jim one day is once again stone drunk at the bottom of a bar after a bar fight. But the bartender comes up to him and says, Jim, wake up. You see, I'm not really a bartender. I'm a time traveler. Come into my machine and let us find out who is this Jim/Jane. So they go back, way back into the past. So poor Jim, he doesn't quite know where he is in the past. But suddenly, he meets this beautiful 17-year-old girl. And it's love at first sight. But you know, it was not meant to be. They quarrel. And then Jim finds out that his girlfriend is pregnant. And then Jim says to himself, oh my God, history's repeating itself. This happened to me. Well, I'm going to make sure that my baby gets the best education possible. That night, 9 months later, Jim goes to the hospital, breaks open the window, kidnaps his own precious baby girl. And then Jim and his baby girl go back into the time machine. Again, way back into the past, until it is 1945. It is a dark and stormy night. Jim comes in from the darkness carrying his precious baby girl that he drops off at an orphanage. Well, the nuns don't know what to do with this baby girl they find the next day, so the nuns call her Jane. And Jane grows up wondering, who is my mother? Who is my father? I was left as a foundling on the doorstep of this orphanage. Well, Jim finally gets it together. Jim says, I don't want to be a drunk all my life. I'm going to join the Time Travelers Corps. So Jim has many heroic exploits in the annals of time. Now Jim is an old man. He says to himself, I've had a good life, but I want one final mission. For my last mission in time, I'm going to go backwards in time, put on a wig, to impersonate a bartender, to meet a certain barroom drunk who just got into a fist fight because someone said, who are you, Jim? Who is your mother? Your father? Now, for 10 points, who can tell me? Who is Jim's mother? Father, son, daughter.
Oh, yeah. Have you figured it out yet? Do you know? Who is Jane? Who is Jim? Who is Jim's grandfather, mother, brother, sister, and all? Have you figured it out?
Yeah, Jane is a family tree unto herself. Can you imagine a family get together and they get into a food fight? And someone says, you did this to me. No, you did that to yourself.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the mother of all time travel stories. And speaking of time travel, we've got to go ahead and kick the time machine back on. I think it's had long enough to charge, and see if we can't travel back to 2022. So gather round, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on. Let's see if we can fire this thing up one last time. Uh-oh, that didn't work. We really don't want to be stuck in 2020. Hold on, let me see if we can get it going one more time. Hit this button, this switch, and go. Hold on, it gets pretty intense right here, guys. Grab a hold of something. Here we go. And now. All right, everybody make it back safe. Everybody safe and sound back here in 2022. Glad we all made it. What'd you guys think of that review of the time travel episode, traveling back in time ourselves, ladies and gentlemen? I hope that you enjoyed that. Definitely something different than we normally do. There's a reason we don't take the time machine out very often, as it does drain a lot of power. Like the doc said, you'd need the power of a star, the power of 2 black holes, just the same. I think we've drained them down to nothing, ladies and gentlemen, but I hope you have once again enjoyed this episode, folks. In the end, all you can do is look at the evidence of time travel, apply a little common sense, and you be the judge. That's right. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show for Thursday, January the 13th, 2022. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or even the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. I really hope we didn't leave anybody back there in 2020. That was quite a rough year. I would hate anybody to have to relive it twice, right? But for those that did make it back, ladies and gentlemen, don't you worry. The den may be closing, but the weekend fun has only just begun. That's right. Now that we've kicked the weekend off right, I'm going to hand the reins over to the other animal of radio, our buddy AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, as he comes back for 3 more episodes of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show this week. That's right, folks. On Friday, January the 14th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, he's going to be talking about the high horse. That's right. There are many, many people who get up on that high horse and forget to find their way back down. I know a couple who I would like to bring down off their high horse quite often, if possible. But ladies and gentlemen, AJ will be discussing all that and more on Friday, January the 14th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, on the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. That's right. And then he comes back again on Saturday for another brand new episode of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, Saturday, January 15th, 2022. He's going to be talking about being antisocial. Stop being so antisocial. So from discussing people who have too much public appeal in their minds to those that want no public interaction at all, folks, antisocial activity and personality and how it affects all of us in 2022. What does it mean to be antisocial in 2022, right? They've really redefined that term. Maybe they were able to do that by the use of subliminals, which AJ will be talking about on Sunday, January 16th, 2022. Once again, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. All shows here on the network start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. That's right. He's going to round the weekend out right once again with an episode about subliminals, a viewer suggested episode. Shout out to Sandy B on that one. The viewer suggested episode of subliminal messaging and how it is used in today's world, from advertising to other ways that you are manipulated every day through the idiot box of the TV, and many other ways of subliminal messaging use. I can't even spit the words out right, ladies and gentlemen. And if you miss any episodes that we've done, make sure you hop on over to the rippinrabbithole.com. That is RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. That's right. Over there, you're going to find a plethora of information and fun. First thing you're going to do is sign up for your 24/7 Backstage Pass. Is going to get you access to all the rest of the features of the rippinrabbithole.com, and it is absolutely free and always will be. That's right. What kind of features do you get access to? Well, for one, you get access to something called Down the Rabbit Hole. That is our exclusive social media section over there. Do go check that out. We don't shadow ban or pull those nasty tricks that those communist platforms like Facebook and YouTube like to pull. So go on over, check out the Down the Rabbit Hole section, as well as the 24/7 Backstage Lounge. And for those that don't know, we are coming up on the 5th annual Freedom Flame broadcast. The Freedom Flame, of course, is what the Rippin' Rabbit Hole is built on, and definitely come on over and check out more information on that. Go to the bottom of every page on the rippinrabbithole.com. There is a little flame icon there. Click on that and learn the story, the incredible story of the Freedom Flame, a story that is being dug out of the annals of history and brought back to current times. And we'll be celebrating that in March 20th, I do believe it is. And guys, we've been in planning for this recently, and we have a lot of fun stuff planned for this year's event. This year's event is going to be a little bit different than most past years. So for more information, make sure you stay tuned to the rippinrabbithole.com as we get closer to that date. Once again, that is RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. I am really excited about what we've got going on this year, folks. And like I said, to stay up to date, make sure you are a member over at Rippin' Rabbit Hole. Ladies and gentlemen, with that said, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and on behalf of AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Muska, Walt House, everyone at Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, we wish you the most wonderful of weekends. And remember, until next time, stay awake, but dare to dream. Let's go, Brandon. Good night, everybody. Bye.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When lies and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Check out the new book, Moon Madness, by first-time author J.W. Hicks. Originally conceived in 2015, this fictional novel only becomes more and more relevant by the day. What would you do if you found out that almost everything your government has told you was a lie? In the year 2103, Jeremy Carlson and his fiancée Brittany Parsons decide to take a vacation in a lunar cabin. Everything was going great until strange things started happening after they went to sleep. Are they being abducted, or are they catching moon madness? A strange phenomena thought to be caused by the lower gravity of the moon. After a fateful meeting with a guy named Zach Marshall, things become a whole lot more clear. They are now determined to expose the governing body of the Earth and Moon, known as the World Council. Will the three of them succeed, or will things go horribly wrong? Find out in the great novel, once again, by first-time author J.W. Hicks, called Moon Madness. Available now on Amazon, $12 for paperback, $7 for Kindle. Not adding this to your bookshelf would be madness. All right, what year do we want to go to now? Let's see. What was that? October 30th, 1985. Let's see if we can make it there. Let's see, you press this button and hit this switch and... Uh-oh. I really don't think that's good. It didn't do that last time. Wait a minute. Wait, where are we going? The counter's messing up. Where are we going? Guys, this ain't good. Oh no. Uh-oh. Tuna, no, don't. We're going to...